men look at women and are like, why is she so scattered? Why is she so all over the place? Well, because we have this thing where life for us is outside in, whereas for you guys, it's inside out. And so what a man can do in that moment, and it's what's so amazing, it's literally the masculine light switch of prioritization and guidance. And man can really just say, hey, no, stop. This is the priority. What are we going to do now is effectively just a symptom of all of the innate instinctual ways that women are. And so when he says the answer, it's like, thank you. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Ancient Intelligence. You've got your host, Anya Shack here. And today I want to talk about the notion that women want and need men to help us prioritize things. So this is an interesting conversation and I want to explore it here. I'm not going to get everything right, but I'm, attempting to bring light to things in the way that I make observations and create insights and put things together, all of the disparate sources that I'm always looking at, and also anecdotes and conversations and things people tell me. And this week, a friend of mine, she sent me a video of Reese Witherspoon, basically giving a speech to a female audience around Hollywood and women in film. And she was super upset. She was talking about how upset she was at the line that inevitably comes in a film or any action film or any kind of film where the woman in a crisis situation or something, she'll turn to the man and she'll say, "What do we do now? What do we do now?" And and then the video kind of cuts like 13 or 14 films where that happens. And she just gets really frustrated and she's kind of emoting in that, what do they think? We're helpless, that, if the man is not there to tell us what to do, then we'll just, die on the floor, hand over our forehead, just completely fall apart. And it's really frustrating and foundational to understand that's not why we look to men to tell us what to do, right? That's not why women are looking to men to, help us prioritize, like, what are we supposed to do now? It's actually because up until this point, and I feel like it's just so clear, instinctually, women, we're always looking to be with a man who can protect and provide. Like, this is just foundational. I think these are some of the conversations that nobody wants to have anymore, in the mainstream generally, because they're so focused on the rational mind and they're really not appreciating the power and intensity that our instincts have on our actions and our behaviors and how much they actually influence them. Truth be told, 95% of our behaviors are unconscious. And it's so unfortunate that people are so stuck in their minds and stuck in their rational that they are unwilling to admit how important the instinct is, how important our evolutionary desires and drives are, and how just because we have the internet and we've been really technologically savvy for a couple of decades, we're suddenly these completely different humans than we were a couple of 100 years ago. We're absolutely not. We're the exact same humans we were 1,000 years ago, 5,000 years ago, 100 years ago. We haven't changed that much in regards to our behaviors and what we desire. And so it's really interesting. So that's one thing. Number two, really, before anything rational happens, we have these two drivers to survive and to procreate. Those are our foundational ones. Survival is first, and then procreation is second. And so what's really happened and what I see is when it comes to survival, women as the weaker sex, right? We are generally weaker than men. That's just like a very foundational, innate knowing that women have. So, people talk about this a lot, is just the notion that men generally, until they really sit with it, until they really hear it, don't appreciate the fear that women feel when they walk around, when they're outdoors, when they're just like walking by a strange person that is a man and is bigger than them. There's always that that feeling like, oh, okay, I made it by. I made it by, right? There's the inner turmoil of being the sex that needs protection, the sex that seeks protection. And so it's just silly to pretend like that's not what we want. We've always wanted this. And so it's why we, want to be with strong men. And it's just foundational. And so for that whole video to even have any merit or come about, it's you have to ignore that. You effectively have to ignore that, right? Because if you think about just a quick test as a woman and a man, really just thinking about roles we play and jobs, the job to be done in any given situation, especially in a crisis, if a man's not around, right? And it's just a woman there and her children are there or friends or kin or something, she will step up. She will do what needs to be done in the moment. She will work hard to focus and make something happen and save herself, obviously. But then the moment that she's with her partner, someone that she has chosen because he's bigger, stronger, able to protect, which is one of those foundational survival instincts. That's one of the reasons we're attracted to men is because of that. It's like, okay, maybe she can, but does she want to? That was my foundational takeaway from watching that video. I was like, okay, yeah, maybe she could, but does she want to? And I think that's a foundational question that should be asked by women everywhere, right? Okay, yeah, I can do that. Yes, you can. Absolutely. Do you want to in any given situation? And that takes some unpacking. That takes some real understanding of like, am I proving myself or am I just being myself? Which one is it? And when it comes to the energy of what we see in the world, there's a lot of proving energy. It's really not natural and authentic, right? And we know this because how many more women these days have crazy autoimmune disorders that just pop up, right? Throughout my 20s, I met women everywhere and also myself. I dealt with some autoimmune stuff that has come up in my life and just someone has Hashimoto's and someone else has autoimmune issues and then there's a thyroid problem and there's just all these ways that female bodies are telling women like you're not supposed to be doing this stuff. You can, but it might kill you. It might make you miserable. It might mean that you need to go start taking antidepressants, which so many women do, right? I think it's double the amount of men that females take antidepressants in the West. And it's just like, if that is becoming a need and there's no change happening, there's no questions being asked, there's no curiosity. I'm like, do I want to be doing this? It just makes you think, right? And so going back to a great thing that men and women can do is if you really just imagine yourself, and again, there's no right or wrong answer to this. Again, average differences don't mean absolute differences. There might be the occasional women that really have a deeply masculine drive, right? To do certain things and they don't have a very strong feminine drive and feminine desire. So that's okay. That's totally fine. Very small little fraction of a fraction of women, though, right? But the general gist is if you're asleep with your partner in the middle of the night, your kids are in their room, okay? If you're a couple that doesn't have kids, maybe your niece is visiting for the weekend and she is asleep in the other room, right? For example, if you are single, just imagine this scenario. An intruder breaks into the home, what do, right? Like who grabs the bat or the gun and who goes to the kids? Like there is a job to be done and there's two jobs here. And like one person has to do one job and the other person has to do the other job. And so in that moment, what's it going to be? What job are you doing? And the truth is, if the woman is going to grab the gun and grab the bat, and the man is going to go be with the kids, there's an instinctual loss of attraction, confusion. It just inverts that instinctual desire. Oh, I want to be with someone that's bigger and stronger than me to protect me. It's like it goes against that survival instinct. It doesn't make any instinctual sense. It's just not true. Even though rationally, yeah, strong woman, she boxes, she does jujitsu, maybe. She could grab the gun. She might work it out. It might be totally okay. It might all work out. But the fact that if she does that job, that means he's doing the other job. And that wasn't the original intention. That's not what most women desire. If they do, fine. But I just don't believe most women desire that. And so when celebrities are making these big statements about, like, oh, I'm so annoyed every time in a film the woman looks at the man and says, what do we do now? She's just not privy to this instinctual desire that actually runs behavior, not the rational mindset. Like, I can do whatever a man can do. Sure, you can. Totally can. I promise you can. But do you want to? And I really think that's foundational. So that's kind of like the survival aspect of things. And then we get into this notion of, okay, the instinctual drive says, I want to be provided for and protected, right? The provision, and I've talked a little bit about provision in the last two videos, and we're so focused on the financial aspects of provision, and that might be a representation of a man's ambition and his ability to, make things happen in his life, which is really attractive, right? It also, showcases the sense of safety and this feeling of, it's okay, right? But another aspect of provisioning is guidance, prioritization. That's really, really attractive. And it's not archaic, or it doesn't diminish a woman's intelligence or her capacity for knowledge or anything that is wonderful about any woman and anything that she chooses to embark on, or anything she chooses to study. I actually was having a coffee with another girlfriend of mine yesterday, and it was very enlightening, this conversation. She's a lawyer in very like high power equity. I don't even know exactly the terminology, equity law, something. And she was talking to me about, we were talking about sex differences, one of my favorite things to talk about, as all my friends and acquaintances know. And we were talking about the difference between some of the female partners and some of the male partners. And she was effectively saying that for her, she's great at her job. She's happy to be doing her job. It's something she enjoys, especially now before she starts a family. And more than that, right? It's like when a woman is single, she gets to succeed and excel in what she's doing. She gets to provide for herself, and she gets to create the masculine structure that supports her life, right? It again, this exact notion goes against this idea that, like, oh gosh, women are just helpless creatures, and oh, I can't pay my rent, and just come step in for me. Like, no, that's not a sovereign, solid woman, right? But the idea is, the moment that partnership enters her life, she gets to make a choice. Yeah, I can keep doing this. Do I want to? Right? These are great questions that women get to ask themselves. And for my friend specifically, I already know that she doesn't want to, right? She would gladly give this up to start a family. I think more and more women are kind of starting to understand, like, what are the priorities? And speaking of priorities, she talked about how she'll have five things on her plate. And one of the things that she does is she'll ask her boss, her superior, she'll say, here are the five things on my plate. What's priority? Right? And I asked her, is there a difference in the response you get between some of the female partners and the male partners? And she told me, this is quite anecdotal, but take it for what you will, right? She said, yes, there absolutely is. So what happens is, a woman, she'll usually answer right away. And four times out of five, she'll come back and she'll say, actually, no, 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 that's the priority. Sorry. And she'll be a little unsure, and she'll do her best, but it won't be very trustworthy, right? Like when she'll respond, it's a little uneasy. She'll like, okay, are you sure? Meanwhile, when she asks the male partners, they say to her, they don't try to respond right away. A lot of times they'll take a long pause, give me a moment, and then they'll wait. And then sometimes 10 seconds later, so they'll say, okay, that's the priority. And sometimes the male partners will say, you know what? This is really important stuff. Give me 30 minutes to think about it. I'll get back to you. And they will. And then they'll give her a really clear, definitive answer that she can trust, right? She feels really good. Like, I feel like this is true. This man really took his time and he's really thoughtful and right. And so, not to say that there aren't women that can do that, but the idea is that men are better at prioritizing things. They're just better at it. So, when thinking about that Hollywood example, like, what are we going to do now? The man that's standing next to you that that is meant to protect and provide for you can also guide you. That's part of his provision, right? He's really good at prioritizing. And that's amazing because women, because of our diffused awareness, right? So, what is diffused awareness? I think this is one thing that Alison Armstrong talks about in some of her content as well. Like, people will say, well, men are singular focused. Awesome. That means women are multi focused, right? So, they pick a couple things and they do them and maybe they don't do them as well or as fast, but they'll still pick a few things. And the truth is that's not really what it is. Diffused focus means to pour out energy. Energy pours out. So the idea is like everything is in awareness, like everything is available to me. And that is wanting my attention, and that is wanting my attention, and that is wanting my attention. And number one, I love women because of this. This is a beautiful thing about women, right? Let's really get clear on why this was created for women to be able to nurture a child, to be able to make a meal and sense that the child has a shift in energy and the child needs something new now. The meal's still going, right? And then someone comes in, a neighbor or something, someone comes in and they're ill and they need something. And then she knows, okay, let me help them. Let me get the medicine for them. The child's still okay. The meal is still going. Everything's still going. It's a really fascinating part of being a woman. And it just means like I am affected by the world, right? There's a teaching that I think I wrote it in something that I was writing a little while ago, this idea that masculine energy really comes from within and then it asserts itself out into the world, right? It's like, boom, boom, I'm asserting myself to make the world a better place, to fix something, to, build something, to make something that everyone else can enjoy. It's like a magical part of masculine, everything. And feminine principle, it's the opposite. Everything in the world is like affecting me and then it's changing me for the inside, right? It's changing me on the inside. Masculine goes inside out, feminine goes outside in. Think about that. It's a principle. It's a yin yang principle. It really rings true in so many ways. This is why I'll listen to a song and it'll make me cry, or I'll see something really beautiful and that'll make me cry a little bit. And it's just because we're so sensitive and attuned to the rest of the world, right? We don't really have the filters on. Everything is available to us. And it makes for a really rich and beautiful and emotive existence. And it's what I think women can give to men. It's how I think women can, nurture men, right? To, hey, I'm here, right? I'm with you. All of those little, let's just take this moment. Look at the beautiful sunset, right? These just beautiful moments that I think women can help men bring male attention to that enriches men's lives. And I think it's very beautiful. And so you think about this notion that diffused awareness, right? It's everything, it's everywhere. And I just talked about some of the beautiful aspects of it, but sometimes, like for example, men have that beautiful singular focus where they're very focused and they can get something done in a very efficient manner. But that means that sometimes they ignore things. They don't see certain things that might be beautiful for them to see. And that's why women will come in and be like, oh, did you notice that? Or, oh, I have something to tell you. something that I've heard a lot of men share with me is um, they are so amazed and astounded at how women can pick up on whose energy might be good for us or not, right? So, for example, a man will meet someone out at a business, at an event or a networking event, and or a party. I actually had a client share this with me. They were about to do business together. They were going to do something. Long story short, after that event, his wife was like, something off about that guy. And then she described to him a couple of the things she saw that night that he didn't see. Whoa, match made in heaven, right? And this is like, oh, I love men and women when we come together. It's so beautiful. And so that's, something beautiful that women can do. And then when it comes to diffused awareness and how it can sometimes be a detriment to women is, okay, everything is talking to me. Everything wants my attention. I think I watched a video a couple of, I don't know when it was, but basically this man was like, my wife said she's really tired. And so she went to go take a nap. 2 hours later, I have 13 new TikToks to watch. I have 4 new chores to do, and I have two new house projects to do, right? So it just goes to show this idea of diffused awareness. Even when it's time for me to take a nap and it's time for me to relax, everything is vying for my attention. And as a woman, what I desperately need, right? And sometimes that can throw me off focus, right? Just throw me off. And it gets frustrating and overwhelming. And then men look at women and are like, why is she so scattered? Why is she so all over the place? Well, because we have this thing where life for us is outside in, whereas for you guys, it's inside out, right? And so what a man can do in that moment, and that's what's so amazing. And I talk about it all the time. I always say it's the masculine light switch. It's literally the masculine light switch of prioritization and guidance and effectively provision. A man can really just say, hey, no, stop. This is the priority, right? So what are we going to do now is effectively just a symptom of all of the innate instinctual ways that women are, right? And so when he says the answer, it's like, ah, thank you. Thank you. Right. And then when there's physical touch connected to it too, right? When there's like a hand on the hand, if it's like a situation, more of like a friend situation. If it's a romantic situation, it's like a hug, right? An embrace. It's like, hey, we're good. And what that does too is it makes him and your relationship the priority for her, which is what she wants in the first place anyway. At the end of the day, she just wants to be made to feel safe because all those things that she may or may not be doing, none of it is really that important in the grand scheme of things, right? The importance for her is relationships. For women, the importance of life has always been about relationships. That is what we desire. That is what we're driven by. And that's why we have all these different ways that we maintain our relationships in ways that are very effective, right? We share a lot of details with each other. We just, as women, we have different ways of maintaining our relationships, right? We are the glue that holds the tribe together, if you will. That's what people have said for many, many decades, right? And so it's a foundational idea that, and some of the stuff that I just talked about, right? The survival and then getting into the diffused awareness. And here's a great example. This is something I wanted to mention before, but most of the men that I know, whether they're colleagues or friends of friends, spouses of my girlfriends, they'll always say something like, tomorrow I need to go shopping for new work boots, right? It's super clear. It's one thing, it's singular focus. Whereas women, I mean, we already understand this. We probably already know where this is going, but tomorrow I'm going shopping, right? I'm going shopping. You wouldn't ever ask a woman for what? Like that almost, it's like it's like an oxymoron. It doesn't make any sense. Like if a woman told me I'm going shopping tomorrow, I would never ask her for what ever in my life because it's like, because I know that what she's looking for is all possibilities. She's letting the world influence her from the outside in. Oh, maybe I see something beautiful over there, maybe something beautiful over there. This is a foundational, like, joyful part of being female and being a woman, and it's beautiful. And we see something beautiful, right? And then imagine a woman sees something really beautiful or something that her husband or partner might could use, right? She's thinking about him. She's always thinking about him. She gets it. She brings it home. It wasn't even on his radar that he needed this or he could use this. And then this new thing becomes something very important in his life, right? It makes him more efficient. It gives him joy, whatever. She did that, right? Based on her diffused awareness, based on her availability to all possibilities in life, based on her way of being in the world. It's amazing and it's so cool. And I want to always bring forth the beauty that is men and women. That's the point of this whole podcast. And there's a lot of people that have been hurt, and I get it. I get it. People have been hurt, and there's some blame and there's frustration. There's an opportunity to really understand that there's a new narrative. A new narrative is possible if you let go of the old one, right? The longer you hold on to an old narrative, the more it runs the show, right? There's a new narrative that's possible. And so this is really beautiful. And so kind of wrapping this whole thing up, I hope that this has been helpful. We talked about our survival instinct. We talked about women's diffused awareness, whole bunch of examples and real clarity around, yeah, like we love when men prioritize things for us. It's so helpful and it's happening all over the place. And when we finally understand that our instinctual drive needs our love, needs our witnessing, right? Then we can get out of the rational mind that we focus on so much and we can come back together to really create a little more connection, a little more understanding, right? So hope y'all have enjoyed it. Until the next one. If you found value in what I'm doing here, please help me grow the podcast. And you can do one of two things. Either share the episode with a friend or leave me a review on Spotify or Apple. This will help me so much. Until next time.